Before we do, we're going to segue briefly into this. Just Stop Oil. So Just Stop Oil activists dusted down their placards, dug out their infamous fluorescent orange vests, charged up their loud hailers, and then they joined in a gathering today in central London. Hundreds of activists turned out. Let's discuss this with Dr. Kush, a Just Stop Oil spokesperson who was at the march today. Hello there, morning or afternoon to you. Was it a march or was it really something else?
It was a celebration, frankly, of the fact that after 3 years of campaigning, Just Stop Oil has won its demand to end the new licensing of oil and gas fields in the UK.
And explain how you think Just Stop Oil achieved this ambition. How did you bring it about?
So I think what we've seen time and time again through history is that civil resistance works. And despite decades of environmental campaigning through lobbying MPs, trying to get letters through petitions, etc., the problem has just been getting worse and worse. And actually, even despite this win that Just Stop Oil has had, we're seeing temperatures now hotter than ever, unseasonably warm over the coming week. And yet the effectiveness has been around using this campaign of civil disobedience to really get attention for something that is otherwise not getting the attention that it deserves in the media.
I mean, we had heard that Just Stop Oil wouldn't convene again. We heard that you'd all stay at home and keep your placards under the stairs and, you know, we'd be spared whatever it was. But here you are back. But you think this is your last hurrah or not?
Yeah, so, well, this campaign has now come to an end because it always had a very clear demand at the outset around ending new licensing of oil and gas. That doesn't mean environmental campaigning is going to end in any way, shape or form. But what we need to do is now focus on what are the next steps. Now that we've turned the tap off in terms of new oil and gas licensing, we need to see what can we do to actually wean ourselves off our addiction to fossil fuels that we've got at the moment.
And what makes you think that it was your protest that did the trick rather than an ideological shift or a Labour government or, you know, a philosophy that is seeping through the greater majority of the population as more and more people, as you have done, realise what's going on with the climate, realise what's going on ecologically, see the disasters around the world and think, oh gosh, this isn't right. What makes you think it's your disruptive protests that have been the key here?
Yeah, well, look, I don't want to pretend for a second that it's only the actions that Just Stop Oil has taken that has led to this shift, but we have been a critically important part of that movement. Of course, there's brilliant work being done by campaigners across the environmental movement. But what Just Stop Oil has managed to uniquely add is really grabbing the attention of the public and focusing them onto the fact that we are facing climate breakdown and that one of the key things in terms of tackling that is that we have to stop new oil and gas.
And I'm still not sure how it is that grabbing the attention of the public or holding people up on a bridge or stopping people getting into town to their doctor's appointment or their examination or all the things that you've done over gluing yourself to some, you know, invaluable work of art in the National Gallery or whatever it is, how alerting the public to something, disrupting and in some cases annoying the public, although of course some of the public who were disrupted were great supporters of yours and didn't mind and were happy to sit there waiting while you protested because they broadly supported what you were doing. Not everyone was a critic or an opponent of yours, certainly not. But I'm still not quite sure how alerting the public, disrupting ordinary people's lives, you think translated into changes in government policy. How, you know, because you know, imagine you're stopping a hairdresser, imagine you're alerting a geography teacher, imagine you're, you know, alerting a bank manager. They can't influence, can they, government policy? So where do you sort of join the dots between alerting the public and changes in policy?
So in political theory, there's this idea called the Overton window, which is what policies are considered acceptable. And therefore there'll be people at both ends of that spectrum pushing, and there's Just Stop Oil has been what's called the radical flank of the environmental movement. And so by taking actions that seem frankly absurd, because they are absurd, you know, throwing soup at a Van Gogh painting, makes you think, well, why on earth would someone do something like that? And then it creates support, not for Just Stop Oil, because people don't like us, but we don't need people to like us. But it gets people to pay attention to the topic, and then they will take part in a lot more of the moderate actions that we really do need people to take, which is engaging with their MPs, which is driving less, which is flying less, which is eating less meat.
So essentially, are you saying, Dr. Necker, are you saying hasta la vista, maybe? I mean, are you going to be back protesting and hanging from something and gluing yourselves from something and sleeping in a boat in the street at some point? Or have you done that now and you're going to think of a different technique for the future?
So we won't be back as Just Stop Oil with that demand, so long as that demand continues to be met. But what we do need to look at is what other steps do the government need to urgently take, because this movement is certainly not over. The amount of carbon that's in our atmosphere is continuing to rise. And I work as a doctor in the NHS, and so I just come at this from a health angle. And the rise in heat stroke, of certain infectious diseases, and of the illnesses that will come from the mass migration that's going to happen because of climate breakdown are all things that we need to address. And so I'm sure that there will be new campaigns that will arise targeting other specific things. But there is also plenty of other environmental movements that you can join in with at the moment, whether it's Friends of the Earth, Greenpeace, Fossil Free London. They're all doing great work, continuing to put pressure on ending new oil and gas.
Thank you very much for joining us. That's Dr. Kush there, Just Stop Oil spokesperson at today's celebration, he says, in London. Going back to the calls on Starmer to rent out homes to migrants. Gareth's on the line in Swansea. Hello, Gareth. Good to hear from you. Good afternoon.
Hi, Vanessa.